Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And today, I want to talk to you about Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic for, well, I guess, PC. Excuse me, so I'm gonna got a lot of stuff to say up front this time. First of all, sorry about the lighting, the room, and how it might sound, and look, all that stuff for just me here. Also, I'm going to apologize for the following footage you're going to see, as I have the game on PC. So basically, I've got to weirdly record it there, but I also kind of have to, it's a laptop, so I kind of have to be by it to do stuff with keyboard and mouse and all that, and my throat is being shitty right now. This whole episode is going to be probably kind of scattered and kind of bad, but I'm going to do my best to keep it together and try to get all these thoughts in here without it getting too off the rails for you. Also, yeah, sorry again for the cough, the way this looks, and it's raining in the room I usually record this in, so it won't be quiet in there. This figured you'd be able to hear me here. So apologies for all the technical bullshit that has to happen. Also, some things to note about this game now. This is the first time I've played this game. I had never played this game before. Huh. And, well, I mean, like, it's a classic. It was released, I think, in 2003 for the PC and for Xbox. And I probably would have liked the Xbox version better, but I don't have an Xbox, never did. Never really played much for PC stuff at the time. Only a couple games, maybe, so... yeah, I don't know. It's not me going at this from the angle of nostalgia from that angle. So I guess keep that in mind. This is my first time playing, and that might have some reflection on what I've been doing. And I look short from this angle, but I am, so. And also, I guess I did use a thing where I used Joy-to-Key to program some simple movement and basic controls as best I could for my controller, because I like using controllers. I'm not really a PC gamer guy, and that's part of the reason why. So, this version of it does not have controller support. The one I played is on Steam, and also I'm playing an old game on a more modern computer, so if there's problems with just the particular port on Steam, or it has some kind of inconsistencies with my hardware or my software or just modern machines in general, the OS, there could be a million things that could be interfering with it, creating problems and bugs. But this is the version I played, and I'm reviewing it as is rather than trying to review ideally what it could be if I magically had the right configuration of things. I don't know. So that's something to note as well. I think that might be everything you need to know, really, I guess, aside from I don't really know shit about most of the extended universe for Star Wars, so if this has some greater impact in the overall extended universe, which is now, of course, totally discarded, so it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of current Star Wars stuff, just keep in mind that I'm not super versed in that either. All that is out of the way, and I guess the only other thing is that, of course, there is a written review, which is linked in the description, and you can check that out before, after, or instead of this video review. I would highly recommend you do that instead, as I think I got most of my ideas out there, and probably got them out more eloquently than I'm going to do it here. So, heads up, it's probably going to be better, less rambly. But hey, you're already this far, so why not finish here, right? Alright, let's talk about the thing. Oh, and it's I guess that one other bit I want to mention before we start. Real quick. It's very story-driven, so because of that, I'm going to do my best to not give away too much of the story stuff, because those are huge spoilers. But some of it, for the beginnings of it, I kind of have to give away to talk about, the whole thing, so you get an idea of the game rather than me just giving you an advertisement on the back of the box, kind of review. So go ahead and if you want to be totally in the dark for this game, just don't watch this. But if you don't mind hearing the main premise and a few things near the beginning tutorial-ish area of the game. Stick around. So, Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic is a story-driven RPG. It's a very heavily story-driven RPG looter, I guess, to be a little more specific. To try and give you a bit of the basic plot. I mean, a lot of stuff kind of has to happen to set this up, but you're this character. You're a Republic. I mean, you start the game and you create a character which you can pick from different classes, and you can do different like stats and everything, and try to create a character, or just use some of the presets for stuff, trying to get the ball rolling right away. And you have some say over how they look a little bit and stuff too. Nothing too complicated, pretty basic stuff, but make some choices and then start the game. And it starts you off as a Republic soldier aboard this ship that's getting attacked. And on this ship there is a very important Jedi by the name of Bastila, who you've been transporting. And the Sith have attacked the ship and are attempting to capture her or kill her. You're not entirely sure which, but it's most likely they're trying to capture her, I believe. Because she has this ability that is called battle meditation, which apparently is good for aiding troops in battle. So they want to use that for them, and they want to exploit it somehow. So both sides want to have that. So that's a little part of it. Anyways, you kind of learn the basics of how to play the basic gameplay stuff in this area, and then you go into find this guy called Karth, who is her main bodyguard, I believe. One of the people helping protect her, and you team up with him to try and go and save her from the invasion. And everyone basically has to end up using the escape pods to leave, because the ship is, I don't know if it is necessarily going to be completely overrun or destroyed or exactly or what, but you've got to get away, and that's really the only way to do it. So you go into these escape pods, you land on this planet. The planet's called Terrace. On the planet, you probably look this up, and it's probably a lot easier. It's probably worded a lot better somewhere by people who have played this game a bunch and can tell it to you real fast. Sorry. You go down to Terrace. You wake up sometime later in these weird, sketchy apartments there, along with Karth, and both of you have basically been stranded on this planet. There is actually it's been put under quarantine, I guess, by the Sith. So the Sith have taken over, put it under quarantine, no transports in or out, so nobody can leave, so they can try to scour the planet for Bastila, because they need to find her. Luckily they're not going after you, because, you guys are just, whatever, you're just Republic soldiers, where they give a crap. So you try to stay low, and stay out of trouble, while still sneaking around and trying to figure out, where Bastila might be, what might have happened, and trying to get around, all the Sith that are, crawling around the city. And I guess there's a lot of stuff in here that you kind of have to gloss over. There's some story stuff that happens, but ultimately you end up finding Bastila, you reunite with her, and you find a way off the planet. You go to Dantooine, where there's this Jedi Order, and these Jedi here actually train you to become a Jedi, because they believe you will be very important as well, and or at least play some sort of role in this. Is basically the plot to take down the Sith, because the Sith want to conquer everything, while of course the Republic, aided by the Jedi, they all want to just kind of coexist. It's sort of like that, so they basically want to use you as just a tool for them, to help them, move forward with it. And for that, they want to teach you the ways of the Jedi, because you are apparently Force sensitive. You have some affiliation with the Force. That's a pretty long-winded way of saying this, but a lot of stuff happens at this point. It's a lot of stuff, I know, but what happens after that? Well, the game opens up, and it leaves a lot more for you to do, a lot more for you to make choices and do things, and the way the game goes after that, basically, is more or less up to you. Much more so than the rest of the game was before that. So that's when the game really opens up, and it's when you start the real game, I guess. The other part up until then is kind of like a tutorial area, basically. That's a lot to cover. Alright. So the gameplay itself is basically 3 different kinds of gameplay. The biggest part of the gameplay is decision making. It's the story stuff. Or I guess it's just story stuff is what it would be. There is a lot of decision making, a lot of dialogue to have with people. There's cut scenes, both in-game cinematics and also cutting to different little pre-rendered movies of things happening. There's a lot of that going on. So it's a lot of talking to people, listening to people, full of voice acting for almost everyone. It's a lot of listening to people, and making choices for their different dialogue. Sometimes, you can pick what your character would say, and depending on what you say, it can change the things that, the other characters will say back to you. It can change things that are open to you or not open to you. And there are consequences to those choices. Sometimes you'll be given some cool stuff, you'll be given a nice side quest to do, there's a lot of ways it can benefit you. It also could end up leading you into some kind of confrontation, or you can end up scaring people into bending their will to what you want just through intimidation, or there's a lot of leeway in there, and it kind of depends on what you do. And also, overall, your choices are going to affect what things are open to you later on for other characters you can talk to based on your interactions with other characters they knew. There's a lot of that, a lot of story stuff, and that's a big thing a lot of people will tell you about the game. Another thing, though, I guess, that's a lot. I guess one other part of that is that you could get light side or dark side points for doing things, like if you work through these dialogues and situations and make choices that are with the ideals of the light side, you'll get light side points, and things that more fit the ideals of the dark side will get you dark side points, which overall, balances your meter of light side to dark side affiliation throughout the game. It'll, depending on how much good or bad you do, it'll play around with those. And I guess, full disclosure, I went for light side. As far as actual gameplay, is the secondary part here, where it's the RPG stuff. It's a lot of you run around and you fight enemies in this combat system that's kind of a halfway between a turn-based and an action-based thing, where basically you can get into confrontations, enemies can start attacking you, or you start attacking enemies, but it's not like you get into encounters. So your turns are based more on, whenever you start attacking, as is theirs when they start attacking. And so you're not tied to going into an encounter and then, having it be based on speed and stuff, and everyone actually taking their turns with each other. There's still a bit of a flow of action, and the visuals of it are a bit like action. There's an action queue even, where you can do different commands, like using items or powers or skills, certain attacks. Putting these things into your action queue will then have them play out as soon as your next turn is ready. So it's a sort of a medium between those two things. And a lot of calculations, depending on what happens, a lot of calculations that I believe are derived from stuff like Dungeons and Dragons type. That's just roots in there, I suppose. But I don't know a whole lot about Dungeons and Dragons, so I can't attest to that too much personally, but I believe there's a lot of the calculation system is going through similar things like that with dice rolls and all that stuff, so it's all handled within the game. Behind the scenes, as it were. Defeating enemies. I guess also party members, so you can have up to 2 other people with you for a party of 3 characters, and you can control any one of them and pick their actions and such for them, what they want to do. And defeating enemies will let you, loot them. There's a lot of looting going on, getting equipment, putting this equipment on to further better your capabilities, like your stats, and there are some other little capabilities, like applying modifiers to attributes, to skills, even to feats sometimes, and even feats and powers. a lot of things can be done with these different pieces of equipment. Some of them can be upgraded. You know, you can do looting to get those, or you can go into certain shops, or some are, you know, quest specific. You know, there's a lot of stuff you can get for this loot. So there's very much a looting atmosphere to it. A lot of item, like boxes and stuff you can open up and check out as well. But that also brings me to the progression system. When you level up, you like, because killing enemies gets you experience, you level up, and when you level up, you can put stuff into these different kinds of stats. So there are basically 4 areas of stats. There are attributes, which are more like your traditional kinds of stats, you know, strength, constitution, dexterity, that type of stuff. Then the other part are skills, which are largely outside of combat, since attributes usually pertain mostly to combat. The skills are done outside of combat, more so usually things like defusing mines or hacking computers, picking locks, that sort of stuff. And then there are feats, which can give you a variety of things. Like, they can make it so you can wear better armor, you're more proficient in certain weapon types, they can give you different kinds of attacks, and just further buff your skills or your attributes, depending on what they are. So there's a variety of things there. And lastly, there are powers, which are only available to Jedi characters. And there are basically 3 types of powers. There are light side powers, which are generally done to, like, buff and enhance your character or party, as to be kind of, you know, affiliated with the good of the light side, I suppose. And doing these, basically these powers they take less force points to use the closer you're affiliated, or closer your affiliation is with the light side. Then there are dark side powers, which of course work similarly, which, like, they're evil things that are, like, they're affiliated with the stuff you'd consider dark, you know, the dark side. So they do a lot of stuff to cripple and harm enemies instead, and take less force points the closer to the dark side you are. And of course, you know, I guess the other flip side of that is that whichever side you're closer to, powers of the other affiliation actually take more force points. So if you're a good character, if you're a light side character, trying to do any dark side moves will take up a lot of force points, and vice versa. And then there are also universal powers, which, as far as I can tell, are not affected by your meter. I don't think you can, you know, have an optimal force point usage in the middle, but I don't know. I didn't really test it. But, you know, they're in a gray area that doesn't necessarily fall into one or the other so harshly. And those are the powers, and, like, you can get one, you know, any combination of any one of these, or any combination when you level up, depending on what your classes are. And for your main character, it's interesting, is you get to pick your class when you start, and then when you become a Jedi, there are 3 different Jedi classes as well. So there's 2 different, like, variants for those, and I think it's the only character that can be double classed, if I'm correct. So there's the whole stat manipulation and all that stuff going into it as well. Very, very RPG kind of thing to do. The other type of gameplay is basically mini games, and there's a few event ones, you know, like quest specific ones, or one-time things, or very limited time things that happen. But there are a few that happen more frequently. One of them is swoop bike racing, which you will have to do at least once in the game. Later on, you can do it just to earn more credits. It's basically, you just go and it's a straight time trial type race. You're going forward, and you have to keep shifting gears to go faster, and you're hitting these speed boost pads, and you're trying to make the best times, beating everyone else's times on those tracks, and you get some more credits. And that's basically it. And then there's the game Popsec, which is kind of like similar to blackjack almost, where basically you just pick if you want to have draw your next. You start with these 2 decks, or whatever, like you and your opponent. Your card comes out and it has a number on it, and then you try to, you know, you can say if you want to hold or I guess stand, whatever. If you want to stand, You can put down one of these cards you have in your hand. You only get 5 cards in your hand, and those whittle down throughout all these rounds. You have to win 3 rounds to win. And once you use a card, from your hand, it's gone, and you just have one less card in your hand. And these can be plus cards or minus cards, and you can only use one of those per turn. If you do that, then it's the end of your turn or whatever. And you try to do this to manipulate it and try to get to 20 points, or at least try to hold out with a higher score than your opponent. If you stand, you don't draw any more cards, and then the opponent has their chance to try and finagle their way up above you, or if they can also tie you, that's also an option. So there's it's basically blackjack with a little more skill in it, and there's various places to do that, different people to do that against, and you could make a lot of money with it depending on how much you wager. You could also lose a lot, and there's a lot of different cards you can get in your deck to make it better for you. So that's another one. And the last one, which doesn't seem to have much benefit or weight to it, I guess, as far as I could tell, though if it's losable, I'd never lost it, but it's basically every once in a while when you're traveling through space, you get attacked by ships, and you try to shoot the ships down. And this little just drilling turret on your ship trying to shoot them down. I imagine that if they shoot you down, you would die or something, and it would be game over or something like that, but they never did that to me. So I don't know if it's impossible for them to do it, or they just never did. I guess I'm not sure. I probably won't ever really know at this point, unless I went back and just let them kill me. But I don't feel like doing that, so I won't. I don't know. That one doesn't seem to have much consequence to it, I guess, but it is one that happens the most frequently, frequently enough to be its own thing and part of the minigame stuff, I guess. And I think that's pretty much the gameplay outside of, doing more story stuff. So that's a lot to say, but, that's that. Now, this game has some pretty good high points, I think. Doing the stuff with the story, I think, was really good. Like the world building, especially. The story was good. The story was pretty good, but I think the world building, especially here, is great. Using the Star Wars universe to tell this fun story. It's far enough back, before the times of the Star Wars, movies and everything, that it could do its own stuff. It has breathing room. It can be its own thing. Yet it still has the benefits of cool Star Wars stuff. The Jedi, the Sith, lightsabers, and the very Star Wars-esque spaceships, the different races within Star Wars. They get to use all that stuff as great backdrop. And they have lots of fun characters to talk to, optional side quest stuff. A bunch of characters that don't even have any real quests or good purpose to talk to them, but you can talk to them anyway, and they have stuff to say, and there's all this interesting lore and backstory to hear, with some really good voice acting too. There's a lot of voice acting in this game. I think, especially for the time, even I don't think voice acting was as huge of a thing to have that much of in a game. It's pretty crazy because it's also pretty good for a lot of it, and it's a pretty big experience with that. And I also like that there's a lot of cool ways for you to manipulate the story, and they're like, okay, you do this, or I decided to do this instead, and it alters, it just alters what you're doing. I guess, I did this thing, and this character helped me out here, and now these other characters know that I'm helping this character, or this and that, and there's a lot of ways that it weaves itself into the game, and there's always consequences for your actions. Whether it's immediate or long-term, there's always consequences, and it keeps you on your toes, because you might screw yourself out of some really cool items, or a really nice, scene or something. If you do something wrong, you might also accidentally give yourself points to one of these sides that you didn't want, rather than keeping yourself as pure good or bad as you wanted to, or maybe you want to, be somewhere in the middle. And it actually brings up, there's different ways to play along with building your characters differently. Maybe you want these characters to use these weapons this time, and next time they're going to use these different weapons, going to focus on these skills, or these feats, or these attributes, these powers. And there's a lot of depth in the way you can build your characters in a lot of very different ways, tweaking all those different little stats and everything, as well as, quest stuff, you're like, maybe you want to just do it whichever most optimal for you, whatever gets you the most credits, the most items, and whatever play whichever way is easiest, whichever way is most difficult. It's interesting. And it's also kind of nice where there's some neat features where you can do stuff like you can turn on auto pause feature in the settings. So if you do that, it turns into more of a turn-based kind of combat thing because it can pause between turns and everything. I turned that on because I wanted that. You can rebind your keys and stuff, so that's good. It's always a good thing to have. Probably should have it, but it does have it. The RPG stuff in general, I think, was decent to do for that. I think one of the really cool options for that, though, is that if you don't want to do a lot of you don't care as much about necessarily doing as much of the looting and stat tweaking and everything, like you can turn on easy mode to make it easier, and you can also turn on auto level up, which will just make your characters get their stats boosted automatically whenever they level up for you, to whatever the game, I guess, decides you should do. And that, if you're looking to just play the game for the story stuff, more so than the challenge or the more game stuff and the RPG complex tweaking everything stuff, if that's not your thing, you can still enjoy it as more of a story heavy experience. And I think that's a cool thing that they left in there, that option, which, especially for the kind of game that it is, I think makes a lot of sense to do. So, a lot of stuff for me to praise in this game, I think. And that's most of it. Even the minigames are nice for a bit of variety, too. And, I don't know, I think I get why people are so into the story and world building stuff in this game, but it also has some pretty low lows, some pretty bad lows, I guess. Like I said, it could be some of the bugs and technical issues, could be just this specific version, this port, or the compatibility with any number of goddamn things on my end. Still means it's probably not that optimized for modern machines, which is completely understandable, but also, I have to bring these things up. There were a lot of bugs. I don't want to mention every little specific one, but I think the ones that plagued me the most were things like a lot of times after combat, my character would freeze up. I couldn't move for anywhere from 1 to maybe 5 seconds, and it happened very frequently. So there was a lot of time I spent just, hitting the directions and waiting for my character to finally wake up and be able to move around again after encounters. I've been told that if you turn VSync on, it'll fix that. I didn't try it because I thought VSync would make it run, wouldn't make it run as good. So it wouldn't run as well. I just didn't, so I didn't want to bother with that. And I dealt with it. Another glitch was my cursor oftentimes would get bugged out and it would have the wrong icon on it. I would click it, or I would just have to click multiple times before my character would actually interact with the thing I wanted them to interact with. And that was something that happened very frequently, and it's just extra clicks. It wasn't that hard, but it was a thing. And there's also a very annoying glitch where a lot of times whenever the in-game, not the in-game cinematics, but like the movies that the game does, the pre-rendered cutscene movies, whenever those started, my game would just decide to minimize itself, and that was also pretty frustrating. And that's aside from times when your party members get stuck on stuff and stupid AI. I don't think that's necessarily a bug. That's just, it's just a thing that happens sometimes. You deal with it. So yeah, these things weren't game-breaking. Nothing game-breaking happened. A few crashes happened. I think that was due to Steam overlay mostly. But overall, that stuff could just be compatibility issues and didn't necessarily ruin it. As far as actual complaints about some of the design choices, the combat system is by far my biggest complaint, in that it's the only semblance of, it's the main meat of the game as far as actual gameplay. Making choices is sorta is like an interactive menu kind of thing. I wouldn't necessarily call that gameplay. So having so much of that, you need some other stuff to give it some meat and have it stand alone as something that works as a game more so than it would a book or a movie or something, right? So the actual combat system, I think, is a very unhappy medium between action-based combat and turn-based combat. It has the whole presentation of action combat, and characters can just start attacking you whenever, and you can start attacking them whenever, and run around and disengage and do all this. But it doesn't it doesn't really work that way, because in an action-based game, when you hit a button you would attack, and you have to wait for your animation to be done and stuff, but there'd be more of a connection between okay, here I'm doing this attack now, I know what I'm doing, and it's more about reflexes and using the right attacks and stuff, and here the game is more about there's the whole action queue, the command queue thing, where you have these actions you're putting in a row and trying to play it more strategically, like a turn-based game, and you have to wait for your next turn to do a thing, even though sometimes that means your character just stands there for a while before you technically have waited long enough for your next turn to be ready. Even though in an action game you would be able to attack, and then once the animation's done you would just attack again right away. And so I would have preferred it to just be a straight up action game, like an action RPG or a straight up turn-based RPG. And even with the auto pause features, it still kind of was a little annoying at times, but a lot better. It's just very annoying that it works that way. Also, I don't know if this is a bug or just a weird design thing, but a lot of times it's the game decides to move on to the next target automatically for me when I'm in combat. And sometimes when I hit disengage, because I want to do my really good attack that I have, but it makes me do a basic attack right away. And sometimes if I hit disengage and then try to attack either that person or someone different, it will let me do the thing I want to. Even though I shouldn't have to do that, it should just let me, take that other thing out of the queue and do the move I want to do, and not automatically make me do my next thing, right? But other times, I would do disengage even, and I would try to target a totally different enemy, do my attack on them, and it would still always force me to do the attack on this enemy I didn't want to hit yet first, which is infuriating that it would do this stupid thing and make me do actions and take turns that I don't want to take. And maybe it's optimal, maybe I'm not losing any actual speed or turn or something from doing that, but it certainly feels like I am, very much so, and it bothered the shit out of me. And also, along with this, with all the progression and everything, it's kind of sad that you can't maximize your character's potential. You can only do so much with them and then they're done. I believe I maxed out at level 20 for all my characters, which I find kind of unacceptable in an RPG. I like that you don't have to grind, that's a neat idea, but it's more like a linear progression, but then have it be tied to doing quests, have it be tied to how far you're moving in the story. Don't tie it into how many things you kill and experience, how much experience you've gotten for doing that, because you're not really grinding that up, and if you do, it's not worth it, because once you hit max level like I did near the end game, killing people was a fucking chore, because it was I'm not getting it. Maybe I can loot them, maybe they'll have something good. They usually don't, unless they're a special kind of boss character, right? And I felt like I largely wasted my time with those last enemies. I'd have to kill them so they don't whittle away at my health, I guess. And so my teammates will actually follow me, because they'll die if I don't try to help them either. And that's something that I think is rough, is that there's ways to grind credits, but would you really necessarily need to all that much? And there's no way to grind experience because, well, you max out on your levels. So maybe there should have been more levels and a way to grind levels more so that if the game was too hard at some point, you could grind up your level and make it a little easier if you don't have the best strategy for doing it. Because if it's about just doing your strategies, then maybe there shouldn't be a level system. Maybe it should just be a progression system every so many quests or, storyline, events or something. It's just a very frustrating thing to me, and I don't like when RPGs cap so low and do something weird with that, because I feel like it takes away some of the whole merit of the more time I spend with this game, the stronger I become. That's something that goes away when you do that. And put a weird arbitrarily low cap. I don't know. Some of the decisions could be better. They weren't terrible, but there were some times where it's okay, obviously this is the nice guy thing to say, even though that's not necessarily what I think my character would say. Okay, well, this is obviously the bad guy thing to say. Some of those lines are genuinely pretty funny for the bad guy things, for how ridiculous they are out of nowhere. But sometimes it's what the fuck are you doing, dude? What the fuck are you doing? Why would I say that? It also seems like it's much easier to be part of the dark side than the light side, because the dark side, just being an asshole to people, try to scare them, try to kill them, easy. The light side, there's a lot more gray areas going on of what's the good thing to do and what will lead to the peaceful, good solution that I want. I feel like that's a weird, difference between those. I don't think there should have been. I think there should have been equal difficulty between them, even if it's in different ways. Also, the main control scheme is just kind of stupid. Maybe not too bad for veterans, the keyboard and mouse controls, but I don't think they necessarily find it great, because WASD makes you move like a fucking tank. You can move forward, backward, and then turn left and right. And you have to use like Z and C to actually move your character left and right. And it's just weird, and controlling that with trying to control between the keys and the mouse for controlling that stuff just is weirdly clunky and awkward. And that pretty much sums up a lot of the stuff. It's like the combat clunky and awkward, the movement clunky and awkward, and the visuals. Well, the game came out in 2003. It looks like it came out in 2003. I didn't mind them. I can understand people not really digging them because they look like that, especially these days when people care so much about graphics. And also, well, I don't know. Music-wise, I guess it's okay. I feel like it had better music. So a lot of it felt more like generic fantasy stuff at times, but it's okay, I guess. So yeah, it also had some of those lows, especially when you're looking for gameplay stuff. And I think those are everything I have besides much more minor, nitpicky gripes. So, Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic. Well, what do I think of it just overall, the entire experience, whole game overall? Well, it's average. I'm not blinded by nostalgia on this. While I do like the Star Wars universe, I'm not a huge fanboy of it to let that try to control me with this, or anything. And, I don't know. The reason I say it's average is because it has, I mean, look, it's an interesting kind of average, because it's not like I'm saying like it's flat across the board. It's just that it has a balance of some pretty good highs and some pretty bad lows. And because of that, I guess it evens out and becomes average. And what I will say for recommendations is, if you're more into really good world building and a pretty good story, and especially if you like the Star Wars universe to begin with, or even just, cool sci-fi stuff, and fantasy stuff, sci-fi fantasy, whatever, however you want to classify that, stuff in space, then you'll probably have a pretty good time with this game. I think you'll enjoy it quite a bit, and you'll probably fall on the side of people who are like, this game is great. If you're more into games with actual, gameplay, like good RPG, just good, solid, engaging RPG, combat and progression and all that, well, yeah, you might be disappointed. You might feel frustrated and feel like it just takes a long time to get to the real game. There's not a lot of real game in it. Probably won't be too into it. It's like $10 on Steam. I actually got the game from a Humble Bundle thing, so you can find it there when it comes to like a bundle thing again. Maybe that'd be a good thing, because I got it for like $1, and really it was actually with 3 other games, so I really only paid like $1 for it. Well worth that. I don't know how much it is in other places. I don't know how much the physical copies would be. I personally probably would rather do the Xbox version if I was to play it again, but I already have this one, so I'd probably just play this one again, let's be honest. I guess for recommendations on that is just that, for people who think they're going to be really into this, or into the story stuff, and into Star Wars, and they're looking for that kind of thing, then yeah, the $10 is totally fine. You'll enjoy it. It's not at all a ridiculous price to ask. It's a little high for standards of getting stuff on Steam, and if you're the general public, I guess you're more on the fence. You're not sure. You just have heard it's good, and you're thinking maybe I should check it out. And especially if you're looking for gameplay, look for $5 or less. I would say wait for a sale. Look for it in a bundle or something. Get it from a friend or whatever. Do what you got to do. It's not bad. It's average. I can see a lot of people getting frustrated, especially with the really long tutorial planet that you start out on. Basically, that takes a long time, and it takes a while to pick up. And newcomers who are like, maybe this is all the game is. This is boring. Would be like they want to stop. And people who've already played before are like, oh, this first thing is just so long. I know all the stuff that happens here. I just want to get to the real game. So that's just a tough one to really sell people on, anyways. But yeah, it's got some really good world building and a pretty good story, and it's considered a classic for a reason. I think it is worth experiencing at least once. Yeah, that's my general recommendation. Anyone on the fence, $5 or less, probably what you want to go with. That's what I'll stick with. And for something that could be fun, I guess, rather than asking a bunch of questions and stuff at the end of the video like I usually do, I guess if you want to discuss any of the stuff that's more into the story of it, because I just played it, I wouldn't mind talking more in depth about it, but I don't want to spoil it in the video. So anyone who doesn't want spoilers, stay out of the comment section, I guess. But like, if you guys want to talk to me about it and converse about things in the game, from like the plot points and whatnot and events that happen, I would have fun discussing with you guys in the comments if you'd like. I guess I'll see if anyone comments. And now I guess I'm just wondering if I should try out the sequel or not. So I guess, I don't know. Anyone who loves this game probably would be like, yes, play the second one. Or anyone who dislikes the second one would be like, yes, play the second one. But I guess that's more of a rhetorical question on my part, if I want to bother with that or not. Well, we'll see. So again, sorry for the weird quality of the visuals, both here and in the gameplay, and the audio's weird. I'm sorry. And I don't know. I don't know. I guess at least you guys can tell that I'm not stealing other people's footage, or very there's no budget for this. So yeah, hopefully this was okay. And leave whatever the fuck else you want in the comments. I don't know. We'll see what happens, and may the force be with you. And you, and that person that you just heard in the other room and or outside, may the force be with them too. Huh? You want to like, comment, and subscribe. That's a much better ending. Much better ending.